Okay, everyone, once again, thank you for joining us here today at WebEx 2024. It's now time to move on to our next session. さあ皆様改めまして本日は WebEx2024 にお越しいただきありがとうございました、続きましてですねこちらのコーナーとなります、タイトルですけれども世界の Web3 トレンド VC が地域の違いとビジネスチャンスについて語る Global Web3 Trends VCs discuss regional differences and opportunities. So let me introduce our panelists for today. 早速ですけれどもここでご登壇いただく皆様をご紹介いたします CEO and MP at Cypher Capital Vineet Budki, Head of Capital at Solana Foundation, Andrea Baglioni, Venture Partner of Griffin Gaming Partners, Keyvan Peymani, and our moderator for today, partner and CEO of Dixie Ventures, Mr. Mike Fez. それでは皆様大きな拍手でお迎えください. Let's welcome them to the stage. どうぞ. So as I mentioned, Mike, I believe you're the moderator on this one. So if you're ready to go, I'm just going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, first of all. Very happy to see you gentlemen here. And we do not have much time, so I would love to dig into straight away. So primarily, would love to hear a short intro about who you gentlemen are, what are the major focuses, and probably some of the cool things you've been working on recently. We can start with you, Vineet.
Good morning, guys. I'm Vineet. I'm the CEO and managing partner at Cypher Capital. We are a $100 million fund based out of Dubai, over 120 investments in the last 18 months. On the focus part, we've been spread across. We've done infrastructures like Sui, Say. We have done gaming like My Pet Hooligan, Revolving Studios as well. We led Shiba's layer 2, layer 3 of Treat as well. So it's been all across. Again, for us, it's not a segment focus, but on a founder focus basis. Founders pivot every time and come up with something which ends up becoming the market. So as long as the founder is great and the team is great, we invest. We just don't go like, this is the flavor, let's put it now and make money. It's the founder-driven story.
Gotcha. So pretty agnostic. Yeah. Andrea?
Yeah. So I'm Andrea. I run the capital team at the Solana Foundation. What that means 70% of the time is that I run the grants program. So we give grants to builders in the Solana ecosystem. And the rest of the time I spend thinking about general capital distribution within the ecosystem. So our goal is to make sure that the best builders get access to funding, regardless of where that comes from. So sometimes that's from us, but ideally it's actually from investors or other grants programs within the Solana ecosystem. Focus, this might be shocking, we focus on Solana projects, and we do it across every vertical and pretty much every geography. So yeah, pretty broad in that sense.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keyvan Peymani. I am a venture partner at Griffin Gaming Partners. We're, I think, still the largest gaming fund in the world with about $1.2 billion under management. We really focus on kind of like what was saying, founders. Although we do have some theses around platforms, we do have some studios in our portfolio. We certainly have been in some layer 1, layer 2 businesses. And so as we watch the space evolve, we're kind of seeing where the market is moving and trying to support the founders that we think are doing some really incredible things in it. I'm also the head of my own family office called Onyx Capital, which is where I do most of my investment in deep tech. And so my expertise happens to be more in the deep tech and kind of engagement side of the business.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for sharing. So I think primarily what a lot of people are wondering about, usually whenever it comes down to the different regions and the project type, what are the major things which you go through whenever you go through the due diligence? Are the tools the same depending on the region and the country, or you prioritize some of the things depending on the country where the project is coming from? Yeah, you guys, please feel free to.
So again, for me, there is a certain set of criteria because I like numbers. I don't like anything that cannot be put in numbers is not worth it. So we put up a sheet which actually guides our decisions on how to invest. And 2 critical parameters over there is where is the founder from, and where's the geography the company is situated in. Now, I don't want to point to any geographies, but there's a track record that certain geographies, like Singapore, for example, or the US, because of the tight controls over there, have a better chance of getting companies which are really serious about what they're doing. There's not going to be something who will just raise money and then vanish off the next day. It's not about them. It's about doing something. So I think that counts a lot in my decision making, what the company is all about, where is it based out of. But overall, it's also about the founder. When you talk to a founder for half an hour, you understand whether the motivation is to build something great or just to be here to raise $5 million and go and buy a bloody Ferrari. So I think all of those parameters count.
Yeah. For us, it's largely a volume game. So we get somewhere between 300 to 400 projects applying for grants alone in the Solana ecosystem every month. And so we see a lot of them. And that has helped us refine our models both for grant giving and also for any convertible grants or investments that we end up making. I think for us, what we've seen, besides the geography piece for sure, is also if companies or projects are making an existential bet on Solana in our case, that is a really good sign for the future support they will receive and generally success within the ecosystem. So basically thinking about projects and looking for projects that are really picking a network and a technology because they need it to make their product survive versus sort of shopping around to whoever is trendy or hot or gives them the most money in that moment. So really sort of like driven founders is what we're looking for.
Yeah, for us, it's probably going to be the broadest answer. We're a very large multi-stage fund. And so, it kind of depends on the type of company. We are obviously founder-led and founder-driven and trying to think about what is it about this team that's going to set them apart and really make them successful in whatever they're building. But if it's a deep tech project, then we're going to get really deep into the tech due diligence and trying to understand what the differentiators are. If it's a studio, we're largely looking at whether the founder's track record in building games is strong. If it's a platform technology that's going off of community engagement or community management, we're looking at the strength of the community. We're looking at the stickiness of the way in which they communicate. Are they great at social media? Are they great at building kind of ecosystems? So it really is tailored to the type of company that we're looking at. There's not like a one-size-fits-all model with check marks that we're going through to try and figure it out. I mean, it is, venture capital is a power law game. So we're looking for those extraordinary outliers that are going to be incredible companies. And at the earliest stages, we're making bets on the founders. At the later stages, we're making bets on the performance and the numbers. So, when you come to us, it really depends on where are you, what stage are you. Geography does matter. To the point made earlier, the regulatory environments around the world are very different when it comes to Web3. And so we do take that into account. However, we do have the luxury of thinking across a longitudinal path. And so, even in markets that are a little bit more restrictive today, we fully believe that the global environment is going to go one direction, right? And we believe that the Web3 environment, particularly driven by the games ecosystem, is going to be really important. And so that's why we're actually one of the only pure play games focused funds in the world. And it's because we're making bets like that are built around the community as well as the quality of the game and gameplay itself.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing. One of the other questions, because the market is so big and there are so many different projects, what are the tools or what is the approach to the market research? How do you find the early stage projects depending on the region? Because let's say whenever you go to Southeast Asia or Europe, there are going to be different stages and where you can meet the founders or how they can contact you, or what's the best way, in your opinion, to get noticed as well?
Founders. We find so many of our greatest deals coming directly from founders who know other great founders. And we tend to find that great founders pull together. They help each other, they talk to each other. And so we do a lot of work connecting with founder ecosystems and founder communities. We certainly use like research to get smarter, but that's more academic, right? Like I think you can get really smart by studying research and thinking about market trends, but you're never going to be smart enough to pick the perfect founder that way. And so it really does take a lot more of the kind of down on the ground, grassrootsy, talking to people and really getting into the ecosystem and meeting people and really kind of being interested in what founders are building to pick and choose and partner with the right companies. We're lucky to be partnered with the companies that are the greatest companies in the world, right? Like they choose us as much as we choose them. And so it is important for us to have that relationship with the founder directly.
Yeah. I think for us, the all that super true. The other piece is that there are a lot of sort of very prominent hackathons, for example, where projects, especially in the early stages, can develop ideas and really show that they are committed to the idea, that they have a vision, that they sort of can execute even in a short timeline. And so a lot of our most successful projects within the ecosystem have started by winning or coming in the top set of projects within these hackathons. That gives them a ton of exposures. A lot of investors, for example, peruse that list as soon as it's released, looking for winners, but also looking for honorable mentions. And so finding opportunities to showcase what you've been building is also a really good way to get noticed.
I think I agree to the points that in the end is the founder network as well as events. When you say hackathons, events, this is where you end up finding great founders. But just a bit of a slight point there is, you would have found these founders in the last 2 years, not in the next 2 years. Because next 2 years, when the bull run comes, everyone's at these events trying to raise money. And suddenly you have 10,000 more new founders come up in the space. But last 2 years, you actually found people who were grinding it out when the markets were bad. They didn't look at the prices of Bitcoin to build up startups. They built startups because they wanted to do something great in the Web3 space, whether it was lending, borrowing, whether it was ID solutions. You would find these founders. Recommendations help. People randomly meeting up people is a really bad way of reaching out to a VC. But getting through when someone can vouch for you, suppose one of my Web3 authors, an investment, suppose he directs a startup to me, I think that he has done a bit of a due diligence. I, in fact, get a lot of leads from venture networks as well. And today, I think the brand has been built. As a VC, we have to build a brand, and then people have to come to us to get invested, and not we going over there. That's what the whole purpose was for the last 2 years was. And I've been on a flight 4 times a month in the last 2 years every day. So that's how we get our leads: founder networks, events, and peer-to-peer connections.
Got it, yeah. Thank you for sharing. And so currently, speaking of the trends, we have the different type of projects coming up from the various number of countries. Do you see a direct connection in between the project type? Let's say it's going to be the GameFi project, or it's going to be the meme token, or another tap-tap app with the certain region?
Yes, I have seen that. Like when I came to Japan last year for WebEx and IVS as well, I was seeing a lot of inclination towards NFTs, towards games. Maybe in the US, again, I sometimes go to very specific events. GDC, I met My Pet Hooligan, which is a $1 billion company, on the line standing to get my pass in GDC. So, you have event types and you have geography types. Yes, maybe you get a lot of infra projects out of the US. Very specific to Japan, I know this, that it is NFTs and it is games as such. So sometimes you see it, but sometimes, because I've been going to specific events, it's event-focused projects that I get as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. A lot of what we are looking into is sort of cross-border payments, and so a lot of that happens to be in places where that matters a lot more. So there's a big event happening in Argentina right now, and sort of Latin America is leading, I think, at least in use cases for payments. And yeah, I mean, I think for us, Europe has also been a big spot for privacy-related sort of institutional finance, stablecoins. Generally, crypto is global, and that's a good thing about it, but you still do see these pockets around the world of sort of focus.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that is as the regulatory environments change, you see founders try new things. And so, obviously we're very focused on games, but in my family office, I focus on health and FinTech. And so when you look at those other industries, you are seeing nuances in the way that founders are approaching the Web3 concept and what Web3 means. And then, there is this kind of macro intersection between AI and kind of call it the blockchain ecosystem, in particular around like AI-driven provenance and that sort of thing. And so as you see AI emerge in certain markets faster than others, you're also seeing use cases in blockchain emerge that are parallel to those AI use cases that did not exist in the kind of generalized Web3 ecosystem before. So that is the one nuance that we're starting to see around the world. Granted, that's not a Griffin's focus, but it is my focus in the Onyx Capital side of my work.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. And probably one of the other questions which most of the projects are asking, and what I hear around as well, what is the perfect interaction strategy with the VC, because most of the projects, whenever they look for the fundraising, most of them, and the good ones, they're not looking only for the money or for the funding. They're looking for the partnerships, and they're looking for the strong partner who is ready to go forward and help to facilitate the growth and help with the connections, partnerships, and some kind of expertise in the different verticals which they have. For you gentlemen personally, what are those aspects, and how do you interact with the project after the investment is done?
So again, this is something that I tell founders, that I'm an investor and not a founder. So I will not proactively come and tell you what to do. You need to come to me and tell me what are your bottlenecks and where can I help, because I have to differentiate, because I have 130 plus projects. A lot of these projects actually are founders, luckily for us, who have really done stuff. When you look at a Sui founder, he was the one who was in Facebook building up the crypto over there. So technically he's experienced enough and he might not need a lot of help. But there are certain founders who definitely need help in ground support, which means that, you know, getting the regulatory issues sorted out. Like I had Manta, I'm in personal, so I invest personally as well as a fund. So Manta founder wanted to set up something in Dubai and he needed the help. Today we have tied up with Russell Khema government to give out golden visas to people who are in the Web3 space to come out. So these are certain helps which we provide once a founder wants some help. And it can be with partnerships, it can be with meeting people, government people to get up some regulatory things started. It can be media as well. Interestingly, because I've been a founder for 15 years myself as well, I understand media a lot and I understand what a PR means and what a real news article means. So, you know, even helping these small things, which new founders might not know about, we give them that help only if they ask. Otherwise, you know, as...
That's fair enough. You cannot help everybody. Yeah, Andrea.
Yeah, same boat. A lot of what we do is sort of try to help projects that reach out to us for help. But a lot of what we also do, so we're a very small team. And so we really try to leverage the ecosystem to help itself, like to help it support itself, right? So we will create forums, we will create Telegram groups, we'll create opportunities for people to help each other, because our capacity is very limited and it is impossible for us to help projects in all the ways we would like to. So a lot of what we do is we give funding and we make connections.
Yeah, I'd echo some of that. I mean, you know, our team is made up of a fairly diverse group of people. You know, I'm a 5-time founder and also ran the ecosystems group at Amazon. So, but ecosystems is a big part of what I think about. But you know, I think in general, the advice that I would give to anyone working with VCs is be very mindful of the partner that's your lead partner and what their capabilities are, and then obviously be mindful of the reach that that firm has. And so, you know, I would echo, like, no firm can give you 100% support because they have a large portfolio and a small team relative to that portfolio. But there are like ninja-like things that that firm can do for you. And so as a founder, it really is incumbent on you to think about your partners in general, but in particular your VC partners, as kind of strategic tools in your toolkit that you deploy at key moments. And so, you know, it's don't think of it as just the fundraising mechanism, which obviously it's a big part of. Think of it as accelerants to certain strategies that you have. And so I find that the teams in our portfolio that are able to use us the best, their CEOs and founding teams are really meticulous about what it is they want us to accomplish. You know, it's the more directive you can be, I completely agree. The more directive you can be, the more helpful we are, because then we know exactly how to kind of lift the network and bend it toward helping our teams succeed. We're not in the weeds every day with our teams, and so we can't predict all of the needs that they're going to need. And frankly, like we want to help. There's a real drive to make sure that our portfolio succeeds. So it's not a mismatch in alignment and desire. It's a mismatch in knowledge. And so the founders have to come to us and tell us where are the pain points. I want to echo kind of the proactiveness that we hope our portfolio has, but at the same time, you know, we're one of the larger funds, so we do have programs. Like, you know, we have operating partners whose job it is to just go and be deep with our founding teams. We do have some investment partners that kind of double as researchers, and so there's a little bit more support that a large multi-stage fund can give from the standpoint of just services. But in general, there's not enough people for all the demand that those services have, and so it really is a founder-led, founder-driven kind of activity.
Interestingly, just to add on this, you know, when you do the founder evaluation, that is critical as a VC, you know, because you have to evaluate the capacity and the capability. does the founder have the capacity to build $1 billion company, and does he have the capability to build? They always say that Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard and made Facebook, but it's only one founder. As the rest 99 who ended up doing Harvard are still at a better place. So once you know that this founder can do stuff, and there are bottlenecks. I see emails coming from our portfolio company which clearly say what they have achieved and where are the bottlenecks and if someone can help. Probably only 10% of the total investments, but that is where a VC can catch on and see that, can I help him with something? Can I connect him with something? Funding is, a lot of times people use VCs as a way to raise funds. That's a very small, meaningless thing, that yes, we will help, but there is much more to build a company. It's not just funds, it's connections, it's networks, it's on ground. So that's how we get along with them.
Yeah, the major responsibility comes after the fundraise happen, right? Because you have to implement and you have to execute.
Yeah. I will say on the connection side of things, so connecting VCs to projects and projects to VCs, the same logic also applies. I get a lot of conversations, I have a lot of conversations with VCs who are like, oh, anybody raising? And like, that is not a great targeted question. But sometimes I'll get projects that are like, hey, I'm looking for a VC who has expertise in the Japanese market, who maybe understands stablecoins. And so this same logic applies to really this entire world, not just, are the founders doing this?
Got it. I think it's very valuable and to understand for all the projects who are currently fundraising, just to get the major idea what the fundraising is. Would probably take a little step back onto the market trends as well as understanding on how the certain type of the projects are going to be launched. Because the VCs, we usually act as the good analysts, and we have to understand that the project is, let's say, being listed in the right time or partnering up with the right companies. What is your approach on finding out that secret sauce on the launch side? How do you learn about the market opportunities, or what are the no-goes? For example, if the project says, hey, we're going to do the huge marketing campaign with the biggest influencers in certain type of the countries, and you know that it's not going to work. So what's the way to understand the exact market strategy? So
interestingly, I had 6 companies which were launched on CoinList in the last 3-4 months, and they were all advised not to launch the token. And all of them failed. Failed in the sense the token has gone down. It's not the company has not failed. And because I sent this message personally to all the founders that, guys, no matter what, CoinList is a great way to raise $8 million. Raise it, but launch the project in the quarter 3, quarter 4. What as an activity I did in the summer holidays, so I don't work in July, August, I taken off. I actually landed up in Bali with 20 founders, and we did a meme villa. Meme villa was a way to find out how to launch great memes. What is the perfect source of launching memes? Which KOLs are important? Like when people say KOLs, KOLs have influence and KOLs have buying power. A lot of these KOLs that you see on Twitter have 0 buying power. They're being given $10,000 allocations and dumping it at $300,000. So we found out those, how to get yourself listed on exchanges, how to get the real partnerships going. And that's what we learned. I wasted my 2 months just to learn this, so that the whole reason to go there was so that I have these 120 investments which are going to launch, and 30 of them have already screwed up in the last 6 months. How do we give them value? How do we connect them with the right partners? And when we worked with these influencers, when we worked with these exchanges, a lot of people say, I'm not going to name any exchange, but there's this primary exchange which takes a $60,000 and a $30,000 and gets 0 buy power. Now the point is, those founders need to know those information as well and need to implement. We as a VC, I just did my part, and I told my team that now please see to it that our investments actually follow these steps. Will they succeed? I can't guarantee it. But so far, for us, it worked. Starting something with $200,000 and landing up at 20 million is not a bad idea, right? So that's what we did from our part, and anyway, we are connecting them with everyone. So hopefully they succeed.
That's very valuable.
Yeah. I go for ROI everywhere, man. I am not going to waste my summer holidays for nothing.
Yeah, Andrea, what's the secret sauce for you?
Yeah, I think for us, again, we see projects across the board, but looking at whatever the newest technological breakthrough is, and this is also true, as you were mentioning earlier, with regulation. When those things change, there's sort of a brief moment in time where there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of projects. And so what we do personally is that we sort of try to turbocharge these environments by giving them grants, by sort of giving them more access to capital. But we've seen that recently with something called token extensions. We've seen that recently with actions and blinks, especially in the gaming world. And a lot of the best founders are sort of understanding of the upcoming technology and understand how to take advantage of it. So, yeah.
I mean, for us, there's no real better answer than it's a lot of hard work. You know, as VCs and as investors, like so much of our time is just talking to people and trying to understand what's happening in the ecosystem. And when I say talking to people, it's focused, right? So it's talking to regulators to find out what the regulatory environment might look like. I spend a lot of time in DC talking to kind of the senators that are both pro and anti. I spend a lot of time talking to state governments to find out what's going to change in like gaming and regulatory things. And so there's a lot of just nitty gritty nuts and bolts knowledge that you need to gain as a VC to kind of like fine tune the lens that you're going to use to pick the founders, but also to be good enough to help them when they ask you for help. Then there's the other side of the reality, which is we help founders meet with other founders, right? So the founders are oftentimes the experts in their vertical and their spaces, otherwise they wouldn't be great founders. And so they tend to know some of the techniques that will work in kind of an abstract model. And when you get two founders in a room who have two different opinions, usually what happens out of that conversation is something really magical. And so we do spend a lot of time trying to get our portfolios to connect with each other. We do mixers amongst the portfolios that are really kind of tailored around themes. In particular, if we have some knowledge to share, we try and share that kind of en masse with the portfolio group or with founders. But it's nothing substitutes the kind of grind of meetings and conversations and knowledge gathering and working. And so it's as fun as it is to sit on stages in Japan, most of my life is not as glamorous as that. And so it's I'd say outside of everything else that my colleagues up on the stage have talked about, like that is the reality of venture work at the end of the day, is that it's 99.9% not glamorous and 1.1% really interesting meals and other things.
And one thing that you said, for the launches, again, launches can go bad as well, but if the product has, if there's a market fit to it and if the founders are really in, they can take back. Didn't Ethereum go down to $100 last cycle? A lot of these things, today, Solana also went down to $9, remember? But it's got back up. So the point is, as long as there's some real use case and real founders, it goes back up. But having a perfect launch is also great. So
I just part of the experience. There are ups and downs as usually. We do not have much time, but one of the things which would also love to hear, what is the understanding, let's say, of the next thing which might be very interesting in terms of both hype and tech side for all the blockchain and crypto industry? So right now, the meme coins, meme tokens, and GameFi are very booming, in my opinion, as well. What's in your opinion is going to be the next big thing?
Anything that can get users on board. Meme coins are getting popular because people think they are fair launches, which I learned in the last 2 months is BS. It's a different way of launching tokens and selling OTC to VCs. But anything that can get users, yes, layer ones and infrastructure is important, but unless we don't get to 1 billion, 2 billion users on board who really have use cases, When I go to conferences, I ask people how many have BTC, and this has been doing for 4 years. 4 years back, only 2 hands were raised. Today, I don't ask how many have BTC. I ask them, how many have you actually done something on crypto? Have you done lent, borrowed? Have you done KYC? And I still see a very less hands. That means real adoption is not there. So where do we get the next billion users and who actually use this? Not to speculate, but to do something. And games is one of the best use cases. Games which want people to play them, not to earn money from them.
Yeah, I think generally the 3 categories that stand out to us is games, payments, and DePIN, sort of for all the reasons you just talked about. So we see projects across the spectrum, but the UX aspect of all 3 of those categories, I think, is something that has been lacking for a while, and we're finally seeing some development in. So part of the reason why Blinks and Actions launched recently was because what we found is that it's actually really hard to get users to go to where they would have to do something in crypto, but bringing that experience to where they are already can maybe help bridge that gap. So you can think about phones, you can think about like doing things on Twitter, and hopefully those things will come together over the next 6 months, over the next year, and we'll see these use cases that already do exist but don't have a ton of adoption actually pick up on adoption as well.
Yeah, I agree with both my colleagues. There's a lot There's a lot to be said for the next billion users, the next 2 billion users, and what that reality looks like. The one thing I would add is I do think there's going to be this kind of cresting wave of AI chasing utility. And when AI chases utility, blockchain becomes a really important part of that equation, right? So if you're talking about how does AI address financial clearances and actually pay you for the work that you've done, how does AI actually get down to the nitty-gritty of where did the information come from and what's the provenance of those details? What is the AI use case in industry? What is the AI use case in kind of the generalized content ecosystems? So many of those answers require a validation system to back them. And thus far, the best validation system we have is a blockchain validation system, right? And so I do think that there's going to be a lot of really interesting intersections between AI and blockchain, and that's going to be kind of the next crest of utility-driven blockchain startups. And in particular for us, we're interested in infrastructure, we're interested in layers that are driving utility, and so we do think there's going to be a lot of activity there.
Yeah, please go ahead. All good? Yeah, thank you so much for sharing it. 30 minutes definitely not enough time, but unfortunately we're running. Please give a round of applause to gentlemen for sharing such a good insights, and yeah, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Before you leave the stage, if we could, we'd like to get a picture with all of you together. So just, as you're standing up, just make your way to the center of the stage, and we'll get a quick picture. ここでちょっと4名の写真を撮らせていただきたいと思います。All right, thank you very much. 会場の皆様、改めて拍手お願いします。Thank you very much. Okay, in just a moment, we'll be moving on to our next talk session. This is entitled Shaping Digital Identity, the Future of Avatars in the Metaverse. この後間もなく、次のセッションのスタートとなりますが、こちらのタイトルはデジタルアイデンティティの形成、メタバースにおけるアバターの未来ということです。すごく楽しみですね。間もなくのスタートとなりますが、ちょっとその前にステージの転換をさせていただきますので、しばらくお待ちください。So we're going to have a quick set change and then we'll move on to our next session.